hippos and sharks. Now, what do you think of when you hear these two animals? Well, for hippos, I'd probably think that hippos are pretty big, chubby, and maybe even cute. Now for sharks, it'll probably be the opposite. I consider them dangerous, scary, and maybe even a monster that's trying to get me. Well, this perception might not be as accurate as we might think. Do you know how many people were killed by sharks in the US last year? On average, one person is killed by a shark every 2 years, and there are an average of 19 shark attacks a year. Well, you might say 19 attacks is still a lot, and sharks are scary. But compared to this, there are 2,900 people that are killed, eaten by hippos annually in Africa. That's a lot of people. Sharks have such a bad rep, even though they're not doing as much harm as we think. And there's such a big difference between the statistics and our gaps of the perception of hippos and sharks. Now why? It all comes down to media. Media such as news, TV shows, and movies, they all promote the sharks in the world and ignore the hippos. Now, for example, in the movie Jaws, it's a horror movie based on sharks eating people and giving the stigma that sharks are monsters, and they just scare people like it's a horror movie. Now, what about for hippos? What can we think about hippos? The only thing I can think of is the children's game Hungry Hungry Hippos. Kids get to laugh, have fun, and play with hippos. Now, do you see the difference? For something more relatable, on the news we see all this coverage of mass shootings very often. Now, I'm not saying that mass shootings do not exist and that they are not a problem, but they do not happen as often as we might think. By watching the news, people have a sense that since they're seeing it with their eyes and seeing it so often, the brain makes situations more available and accessible to them, and people might even think that if they go to the mall, something like that might happen to them. But in reality, chances of that happening are very small. However, this still causes stress within us. But what exactly is stress? Psychologically speaking, stress is defined by Richard Loras as the state of anxiety that is produced when events and responsibilities exceeds one's coping ability. So what does that mean? So the media presents all these events to you and me, and they aren't positive, and they produce all this anxiety, which leads to stress. For example, you might see that there was a shooting in a bar, and in the future you avoid going to the bar because that is a situation that you might think will happen to you and you cannot cope with it. With all these stressing and dangerous situations that are presented to us, it creates and invokes many unhealthy emotions such as fear, anger, and even sadness. Even though we're not actually in the situation, anger and fear will come. Now, these unhealthy emotions were made for situations of harm and danger, such as a thunderstorm or a fire. However, the media is presenting to us these dangerous situations. And even if you're not paying attention to the news, the information will still influence your thoughts unconsciously and make you have the feeling of anger, fear, or sadness, which eventually leads to stress. All these negative emotions are being shown to you are not only causing you stress, but they're also influencing your thoughts and how you think about situations. For example, after watching the news, you might think that the world isn't the best, and you'll be filled with unhealthy emotions like fear, anger, and maybe even sadness. These unhealthy emotions in your mind can cause you to do things that make your day worse and unhappy. Some of you might know the term the self-fulfilling prophecy, a term coined by Freud, and it states that negative thoughts tend to create and often make negative circumstances come true. So basically, if you're angry all the time, people around you will be angry too, thus making you more angry. Now, how do we fix this? One of the things that we could do is set healthy boundaries in our lives. According to the Essentials to Managing Stress, healthy boundaries provide structure and integrity so you don't feel victimized by the invading forces of life situations and other people's inappropriate behaviors. You want to set boundaries on the times you watch TV, go on social media, or even eliminating altogether. By setting these boundaries, you can control your thoughts and information that are coming to your mind. To establish healthy boundaries, you also need to start being assertive. This does not mean being pushy or a bully, but it just means being aware of your values and know what to do, what is right. You will need to learn when to say no and to say no at the right time. So thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed, please subscribe and share this video. Also, if this video gets 10 likes, then I'll make a video dedicated on assertiveness and how to implement it into your life. Thank you so much, and have a great day. And remember, sharks and hippos.